Hello everybody, welcome to the technical analysis webinar here with AvaTrade. My name is Troy, I'll be presenting. As always, keep in mind that there's risk involved with each trade that you take. No one trade is guaranteed to bring you profits. So we'll go over some risk management ideas as well as we simulate maybe a trade or two. And what you'll notice is the tools in our WebTrader platform and in our mobile app really make risk management quite a bit easier. And keep in mind that what we go over is not meant to be financial advisement, but is coming from an educational perspective. Now, real quick from our main website, you have the option to trade on all the same tools that you'll see here in our WebTrader. You can trade on our mobile app and have access to those same tools. So whether it's the market news, the advanced economic calendar with the data look back features on it, or any of the other tools, our app has those same functionalities, and you can find it in the major app stores. And you can trade both on your MT4 and MT5 accounts from our app and our WebTrader. Now, to log into the WebTrader, we just go to the upper right corner here on the main website and log in. And so, we probably want to pay attention a little bit to the fundamentals before we get into the technicals, just so that you can have an idea of what's happening in terms of sentiment and that sort of thing before you start looking at technical signals or doing some of your own technical analysis on the charts. Now, leading into tomorrow, there's a lot of anticipation about what the numbers will look like for NVIDIA. NVIDIA is a huge company. I believe it's over 3 trillion now in market cap, and they've been so strong over the past year and a half, really leading the way with this surge with AI technology. And they're quite a diversified company as well. AI is not the only thing that they do. And their numbers have been stellar over the past quarters. But there's anticipation as to what their numbers will look like tomorrow when the market closes. They report after market close tomorrow. So there's some nervousness about that, some anticipation. A lot of times when there's this sort of large-scale anticipation of things, you'll see some price levels be broken. You'll see them come back through different instruments. The tech-heavy NASDAQ has been moving quite a bit, and some others as well, the FTSE and other major indices, in anticipation of these numbers. Now, there are other things going on as well fundamentally, but that's really a big driving story today and leading into tomorrow. And so what we can do is take a look at some technical signals, maybe look at the market buzz to see what maybe some of the trend analysis might be on different instruments, and then look at some of our own charts as well if we have time. So first, maybe we look at something like the US Tech 100 because it's been moving so much. And so when we pull up the signal on the US 100, otherwise known as the NASDAQ, what we see is it already reached one of the key levels, not surprising, with the anticipation of the NVIDIA numbers at the end of trading day tomorrow. What we see here is it was a buy signal, and it went down and touched the pivot line. That's a classic bounce off of a support level, but it did touch it. So that's why it's saying it reached a key level. It actually didn't reach the take profit marks yet, but it seems to be on its way after a bounce off of the pivot level. So, had you bought on this signal and had your stop loss below the pivot line, you'd still be in on this trade, and you'd actually be up in the money, headed potentially towards the take profit marks up here around 18,800 or 18,850. And so still an open signal, potentially headed towards the predicted take profits. It bounced off the pivot, but did not really break it. Although it says it touched that key level, the buy signal's still on because it's not below the pivot line right now. Had it broke below the pivot, you'd be looking at further downside towards these take profit levels down here. Okay, and that's the way these signals from Trading Central work. They give you the preferred scenario and then a backup scenario if the pivot line is broken. Here, tested but not broken. So if we want to expand this chart and take a look then at the current price movement, we'll get off the one-day candles. Let's go to something smaller, maybe 2 hour. Okay, and we can see, you know, we're up near all-time highs with some of these major indices. Amazing. After all the high inflation and everything else and all the fear about it, the major indices have still managed to climb. And so what I can see here is quite a resistance level up near this area. Okay, for the past multiple days going into last week, we've got resistance right up around 18,800. So here it tested and dropped, temporarily broke through, dropped back down, and just continues to test. So clearly a company like NVIDIA having earnings numbers coming out tomorrow could be the impetus for a breakthrough of this resistance. Okay, so one thing you could do if you feel like, you know, it's too close to the take profits here on the signal. It's already bounced off the pivot. It's 2/3 of the way or so to the first take profit level. Hasn't reached yet, and really the take profits are up past all of this resistance towards all-time highs. Okay, so 18,850 would mean it broke the resistance and is up this way someplace. Okay, so we could go with that, put a stop loss below the pivot, and it's about equidistant to the middle of this take profit zone and to where your stop loss would be below the pivot line. And perhaps leading up to those numbers tomorrow, NVIDIA has done so well up to this point, maybe there's optimism about that. And perhaps this breaks to an all-time high before it would break below this pivot level. You know, the technical signal says buy, and maybe the fundamentals are on your side as well. And so let's say you decide to buy with this signal. Well, then the risk management's very easy. Like I said, there are tools built into our platform to help with the risk management side of things. So if we go with that technical signal, we say, okay, take profit up at 18,850 was the high end of that. So we say 825 maybe. Okay, the middle of that take profit zone from the signal. Stop loss down below that pivot point. So we could go down to 18,745, something like that, even 740. And we see the potential profit with this type of setup is much larger than the risk. Okay, and so I can draw this line, 18,740 is right about here. Okay, and that's pretty close. I would prefer to have my stop loss down below today's low. Okay, this is actually the pivot that it tested before bouncing. Okay, so if I get down to 18,672 or so, could go 675. Now we're about 1-to-1 ratio. Okay, and we can always go back and check that signal. And if I bring that signal up again, then we can take a look and see exactly where the pivot level is on there. And so 18,680. Okay, that's where it bounced from, 18,680, 18,825. That's where we had our take profit right in the middle of the zone. So 18,680 is the pivot. So if we are indeed buying here and we want to be below the pivot, we say 18,675, okay? Which I think is what we had put. Take profit, 18,825. And so we've got potential profit over 4,100, potential loss 30. So the market moved our way here for a potential buy because we see it pushing down now off the resistance. Okay. And so you have a couple options here. You can go with a market move where you still have potential profit greater than risk, getting your stop loss below the pivot, or you could put a pending order down closer to the pivot where it bounced from. Okay, that's a possibility as well that you could potentially go with. So the point is we can see the risk management. We can set this up in a way that we're not guessing how much we're risking. Okay, and so I could split this and say, okay, I'll do half my risk with a market move. I'll do half with a pending order. So maybe I'm willing to risk 1% per trade on my balance, and you should have an amount that you know you're willing to risk on your trades, and then take a trade size accordingly. And it doesn't have to be 1% of your balance; it could be some other number. So 0.1 is approximately 1% risk. I'm in the 600 range. My balance is 64, almost 65,000. So it's a little better than 1% risk here, right around that amount, and going after a little better than that profit. Okay. So now I'm set up in line with the direction of the signal. I got an opportunistic pullback if indeed I think it's going to bounce back up now and not break below the pivot potentially. But I could also say if it does challenge the pivot, I might do a pending order. And the pending orders are very simple from our platform and our app. You don't have to know whether it's a buy limit, a buy stop, a sell limit, a sell stop. It can get confusing, especially if you're new to trading with the different pending order names if you're trading directly from the MetaTrader platform. Okay, so with our platform, it's simple with pending order. Just click execute when price hits, click buy or sell for that, and then you put your take profit and stop loss, and depending on where your entry and exit points are, it makes it the right type of pending order. So if I want to buy, but only if it drops down to that pivot level, okay, so maybe I'm putting 675 or 680 just to get above that pivot. So buy only if the price comes down and hits, I'm sorry, it should be, let me see here. Let's go back again to the signal. Okay. Yeah, 18,680. So if we do 18,685, we'll be just above. So execute when price hits, 18,680. Take profit then would be above that. 18,825 is the middle of that zone that we were looking at. And stop loss wouldn't have to be very far down now to be below the pivot. So 18,000, we could even go down to something like 625 to be a good distance below that pivot. And now you see almost a 3-to-1 ratio potential profit to risk. Okay, so this is the advantage that you can gain by being more patient with your entry point and finding the support level, which in this case in the signal is that pivot line. That's the support level, and that is down. If we look at this setup, that's down here. This is the support level. We saw it bounce from this area earlier today off the pivot and up it went. Okay, so it would have to break below this pivot down to 625, so significantly below that in order to hit our stop loss. With the NVIDIA numbers coming, we don't know what they'll be to the end of trading day tomorrow, and there's probably anticipation that the numbers could be good. So maybe that works in your case, in your way, fundamentally, if you go with this technical signal to buy. Okay, so It's kind of a 1-2 move. Now we do our trade size. Maybe this one also you do 1% risk, which in this case, because you have a better entry, you could do a little bit larger trade size. So 0.12, potential profit 1740, risk 660. Okay, so what you'll see is then one of these is a market move and is off and running. Okay, trying to go into a small profit, but it's just barely getting going. The pending order is under the orders, and it will only open if it hits the trigger price. Okay, so my point here is we're using some tools from the platform, in this case, a signal, and we're looking at the technical analysis of the signal and the pivot line and seeing that it bounced off that pivot line, so confirming an uptrend off of the pivot line, the support level from the signal, but we're diversifying our entry strategy. Okay, the exit point is a little different as well. So the entry point and exit point strategies are slightly different. One is a market move to go with the movement in case it just continues to rise now, and a second entry strategy with a pending order where we can have less risk, a little more potential profit if indeed it does bounce down towards that pivot line before rising back up. Okay, and if it breaks and both of these trades lose, it's 1% risk per trade. Very, very conservative exposure amount with a signal technical analysis in our favor, and perhaps the fundamental news in our favor here too, because you don't see something crash before the numbers come in typically, and especially a company that has so much positive sentiment like NVIDIA. Okay, so we're trying to get the fundamentals understood to be in our favor, and we can see it's really trying to bounce, trying to move into profit, that market move. Maybe our pending order never gets triggered. We'll see. But the tech sector especially has been on quite a bull run. We'll see if that continues with this particular example. Now, if we go back to the trade area, we can take a look maybe at another instrument, another signal. And if anyone has a request, we can look at a particular instrument. One way to find something, if you don't have anything in mind that you want to look at, you can use something like our market buzz. So if I go to the discovery section, I go to the market buzz, I can start to look at different instrument classes and see, well, what's trending the most online? Okay, what's buzzing the most, hence the name market buzz. Obviously, NVIDIA is one. The fact that they have, their numbers coming out tomorrow. So if I click on NVIDIA, I can see, look at the forecast. Price may rise 24%. Okay, so this is what I was talking about, using the different tools to help you decide how to trade. Okay, now we already went with the technical signal and our own understanding of NVIDIA, but here you can see the trend analysis. They're predicting 24% rise. We can see the same technical breakdown. This is a longer term daily signal, by the way. The signal we were looking at, on the Tech 100 was a shorter term signal. Okay, this is a daily candle signal, and look at the expected rise from where it is now up almost to 1,100 is the expectation here. So clearly these analysts are expecting those numbers tomorrow, the lead up to them anyways, to cause NVIDIA to go up, and if those numbers come in better than expected, you may see this trend analysis prediction come to fruition. Okay, so when you start to put together the technical analysis and you see something like 24% price may rise price prediction, it's almost certain that there's some fundamental news behind that type of signal, behind that type of prediction of what the price might do. Okay, and they're not always right. Okay, certainly if those numbers are worse than expected tomorrow, you could see the opposite, right? We could see a 24% drop in NVIDIA if those numbers come in and are significantly below what's expected for their earnings per share and for their revenue. Okay, but we see what's cooked into the expectations here. So leading up to the announcement tomorrow, where the numbers come out, maybe the move we made on the NASDAQ makes sense. If there's positive sentiment, so much so about NVIDIA that we see this type of prediction, okay? So you start to put together the different tools in our platform and in our app, and it really can help you decide how do you feel about the sentiment on a particular instrument. You know, are people positive or negative about it? And then you look at the technical entry point. With your technical analysis, is it opportunistic or not? And you make the move, okay? With entries and exits kind of determined by where are the support and resistance levels, which if you can't find them yourself, they're outlined within the signal, okay? And then you can read the articles. Obviously, this is more of a fundamental analysis topic here, but you can go through and read the articles to see what's the most recent news as well before making the news. And we spend a little more time on that in the fundamental analysis webinar. Now, what else could we look at? So maybe you know, something that is in a different instrument class than stocks and indices, but still related to what's going on. So you know, if we look at something like crude oil, you know, if there's optimism on the market, many times the USD is weakening. Many times that helps commodities rise. If NVIDIA comes in better than expected, that's positive for the economy and economic expectations, and so maybe that helps create a bullish movement on something like crude oil, because as you know, companies do well and the stock market does well, well then a lot of times people assume, well, there'll be more demand for energy. And you know, if the USD weakened and the stocks were rising, then you might see crude oil be able to jump up. So, you know, first of all, and what I should have done, let's look at the signal on crude oil. Okay, it's a buy signal, doesn't surprise me. Many times when the USD isn't so bullish and stocks are rising, many times some of the commodities can find some momentum with that positive sentiment. Doesn't mean it will keep rising, and it actually already hit the take profit. Okay, so it looks like the take profit suggestions are up here, and we see the wick right here on the one-day candle. Maybe it didn't quite hit, but it almost got there. Okay, 78.85 is where the prediction was for the take profit. And we see it already came up, and I think it just did touch it. Yeah, it did. It hit 79 already. So we already hit the take profit on this signal. And so really it's not a valid signal anymore, but it does show bullishness. Perhaps it pulls back, but this would have been a nice one to hit earlier. And we understood the positive sentiment earlier today. So you look back just a few hours ago and you could have had a nice entry point closer to the pivot line and been able to take profit up here. I think this one we'll leave alone because it already kind of carried out and the signal came to fruition already. Doesn't mean it can't keep climbing. You know, if we want to take a look off the 5-minute candles and go to, say, 4-hour candles, okay, we can see for sure there's not a major resistance until you get up in this range around 80. Okay, so over the past days, we've seen on the 4-hour candles, the price range around 80 tested multiple times. So we see here, back on the 2nd of May, it got near 80 and pushed down. We see here around the 10th of May that this tested 80 and pushed down. We see again testing here on Friday last week, multiple tests. We see again here testing 80 and then back down. And now we see the bounce back up and it looks like upward momentum. The analysts were predicting upward movement. It still looks like it's trying to climb even to the 79 range here. And perhaps this signal isn't done yet because it hit the first key level, but not the second. Okay. Is it an opportunistic entry point down closer to the pivot? No, it's not. It already climbed quite a bit and hit the first take profit. But if you're still bullish on this movement, there's room to go before it hits this resistance up around 80. And that's basically where the top of this take profit zone is above 79 but before 80, okay, in that signal. So you can see where these take profits in the signal are coming from, okay? They're looking more down here in the 79 range, but I could see stretching that out up towards 80 based on the resistance level that I see here on the candles. So if you were going to make a move in this direction, try to ride this optimism up, then take profit could be up right around 80. So maybe 79.95, just before the round number, okay? Where would my stop loss be if I got in now? Maybe it's just a certain distance down, or maybe I want to look at smaller candles and see if I see a support level. Maybe I would say if it breaks below this low of 78, then this bounce has turned into a downtrend if it breaks below 78. So maybe I say 77.9 or 0.95. If it breaks below 78, then I'm out, okay? We see it's much better potential profit than possible loss. I take profits up here before this resistance that we saw in the larger candles, and my stop loss is just below the first support level on the smaller 15-minute candles. So it's a small risk, larger potential profit, okay? Trying to ride the current momentum. Now, I would adjust my trade size then based on that technical setup to be in line with my risk management. So the technicals determine my entry and exit points. And remember, the 4-hour candles really determined my exit point here. 4-hour candles show a nice resistance around 80. So taking profit just before 80 might make sense. Stop loss was determined by a smaller candle support, so I could have a smaller risk. And now I just adjust my trade size until I have the amount of risk that makes sense for me. So 0.9 might get me to around 1% of my balance type risk, and then I can make my move. Okay, it's in the direction of the current momentum. It's in the direction of the signal, and maybe the fundamental news is on our side with this optimism that's on the markets right now about NVIDIA tomorrow, and the tech sector kind of pushing things up right now with a bit of a bounce after a pullback earlier today. So we'll see what happens here. Just kind of trying to ride the current momentum from a technical perspective and be in the direction of the technical signals and hopefully the fundamental news as it sits. Okay. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them in. I'm keeping an eye on the question box there. I don't see any particular instruments asked for, so we'll take a look at one more and try and mix it up a little bit. So maybe we'll take a look at a currency pair, Euro USD. Again, maybe I should click on the signal. The sell scenario here almost reached the support level, or I'm sorry, the first key level on the sell. So we see it dropped down. It got near this first take profit suggestion. Again, it's pushed down and got near it. And it looks like it still might try to test reaching the take profit support levels from the signal. These signals look like they were pretty solid today, by the way. I think they had a pretty good handle on the sentiment earlier in the day, and then how it kind of swung through the day a bit. I kind of get the feeling this one might not quite reach all the way to the support level. It looks like it's trying to bounce back up with the positive sentiment that kind of has hit in the past hours. So, looking at the Euro USD, it feels like the optimism about NVIDIA potentially could help the euro to climb against the USD, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, which there's no guarantee of that. But if I see a support level then here on the 4-hour candles, look at this momentum up. We see the momentum. We see the pullback respecting this old resistance. Once it broke through this resistance here, once this breakthrough candle went up, we see support at that price and support again as it neared that price. So it doesn't take much to get your stop loss below the support level right down here. Support and up, support and up. So stop loss down here below the support, and you could have your take profit before it would even have to break this resistance up here. You could go with maybe one of the middle levels right there. So if it even gets near this resistance, you could have a larger potential profit than any risk below the support level. Okay, and yes, I'm going against the signal here, and I think it's okay to do if you feel like the fundamentals are on your side. And you can see that the signal actually carried out almost to a successful signal, but it feels like some support has formed, which we see right here, the same as we see in the signal. Okay, and if you feel like the fundamental news is on your side, then it makes sense to make that move. Okay, and so this is how you can use the signals, not as necessarily a situation where you have to always follow the signal. You can see many times that the signal tried to carry out, it went maybe 80% of the way towards the suggested take profit and then ran out of steam. And those are shorter term signals. So, they're not always perfect. Sometimes they were right in the directionality, but maybe the distance was a little off. Okay. All right. So, looks like we're okay in terms of the technicals. We've got a support level. We've got a signal that went the right way in the sell, but ran out of steam. And it looks like it's trying to bounce here on a support level that already bounced a ways back on the 4-hour candles. Okay, so if you felt like this support level can hold as we head towards the big news tomorrow from NVIDIA, which much of the market is waiting on, then a lot of times you get ranging type movements when you're waiting on big news until the big news comes. And so this is what we call ranging, where it goes up, back down, up, back down. So it's ranging between this support and this resistance. And until the big news hits, it might continue ranging. So that sort of fundamental setup where the big news is coming, but it's not here yet, can many times set up a ranging type movement, which we see has formed here on the Euro USD. And so this looks like an opportunistic spot to buy if indeed this is going to continue ranging. Okay, so take profit would be up near the top of the range around 108.82. Stop loss would be then just below the bottom of the range. So below this support at 108.32. And give or take a little, I'm putting my stop loss just a few pips below the support. You could put it differently if you were wanting to make this move. And now I look and I see, okay, again, opportunistic setup here from a technical perspective. The possible profit much better than the possible loss. My stop loss is below the support, so it has to break the support and start a downtrend in order for me to lose. My take profit is before the resistance, so it doesn't even have to break today's high or yesterday's high for me to take profit. Okay, and that's what we mean by opportunistic setup from a technical perspective. So trying to get my technicals to determine my take profit and stop loss, and trying to trade in the direction that I think the fundamentals tell us increases our probabilities. Okay, so now I just need to adjust my trade size. If I go one lot, I'm only risking 191. If I want to risk X amount per trade, then I'm going to go maybe 5 lots to be 1% of my balance here. Misestimated that. 3.5, 3.4, about gets me there. And you see how easy it is to do the risk management with this order window. I don't have to guess. Okay, 3.35, and I'm around 1% of my balance. Okay, a little bit less. And so I just know, I take my total balance, multiply it by 1%, 0.01, and that I know that my 1% risk is around $648. So that's where I'm at here. I know the exact dollar amount of risk to the stop loss, and I'm ready to go. Okay, so simple risk management using the tools that are provided within our platform to assist you, whether it's the technical signals, the market buzz that showed a huge trend analysis prediction on NVIDIA, and anything that you look at in the market buzz. We could look at the currencies as well in the market buzz to see what's the trend analysis, what articles are out there. And as you put all of those pieces together, then you have a nice trading strategy, and you have a lot of confidence about why you're buying or selling on something. And you're not just guessing or letting emotions take over. You're going through a checklist of things with some of the items that we have in our platform to build that trading strategy and make you confident on each trade. Okay? I don't see any questions popping up, so I think this is a good place to stop. Good luck with your trading if you're going to do any trading the rest of the day today. And let's have an eye on those numbers from NVIDIA tomorrow and leading up to it. I think we'll have a lot of opportunities to trade, maybe some ranging patterns, maybe some breakthroughs that pull back. I would expect some movements like that as we lead up to the big news coming from NVIDIA. All right, everybody, thank you for joining and good luck with the trading. Bye for now.